welcome. Tonight, we talk about one of the most influential posts in the town of Milford's government, the Selectman, controlling 40% of our budget and a lot of what happens in this town. The only people with a bigger budget is the school committee. But everything else somehow centers around the Selectman. As always, I'll never ask you to vote for any specific candidate, not my place, but I'll beg you to get out and vote. Listen, go down to, and you can listen to this show if you're one of the 6 that watch. You can listen to the Town Crier's show. You can go down to the Senior Center. There's ample opportunity to get to know who your candidate is and decide which one of the 2 people running for selectmen is more like you, who have the beliefs that you do, who will help Milford continue to grow and be that shining star that a few of us call the center of the universe. So for tonight, let's start with an introduction.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Josh Lioce, and I am running for the open seat for the Milford Board of Selectmen.
I'll start with the same question I always start and end with.
Sure.
Josh, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, I am a 4th generation Milfordian, as I just found out from you. I'm real.
But you're a real Milfordian.
I am. I live
3 generations.
Yeah, at least 3.
So you're 4.
4.
And you live within 2 miles of your mother.
Next door. And a mile from my mother-in-law. So we've been in town since the early 1900s. My grandparents, great-grandparents settled here. My father's both sides, fraternal and maternal. They lived next to each other growing up, Hollis Street, Hollis Court. My grandparents, so they grew up together. My grandfather wasn't allowed to talk to my grandmother because my great-grandfather didn't think he was good enough to talk to the neighbor's daughter. But they ended up courting and got married, stayed in town, had their family, started a business, which my father still runs today, Milford Woodworking. Father grew up here, married his high school sweetheart, started a family, built their house, continued to run a business, opened up a second business, which my brother now took over. My brother and I were born. My brother's older, Rudy Lioce, sewer commissioner in town.
I was going to say, and you must have done something right, because when Rudy stuck his head up, they sent him down a sewer hole.
They did. He's a lot smarter than me, so I don't know. They might have missed out. And he runs his business, has his family here. His boys are in school. And then I met my wife after high school, but we're both from Milford. Stayed in Milford. Got married, had our 2 kids, and we opened our business in 2003.
What family did your wife come from?
Orzick. So she was they were both from another town, but my mother-in-law grew up on Water Street, so as a young child.
On Water Street?
Yes.
Do you remember what number?
Corner of the Farice Road and Water Street.
Oh my God, that was close, because I grew up on 88 Water Street.
Very close.
Because you got the funeral home, the Tominskis,
yeah.
And then now what's called Mystic Lane was our driveway.
Yes, yeah. So I think further down, but that's where she grew up. So then they lived off of West Street. So that's where my wife grew up, and we grew up on Highland Street. So been here for a long time, very involved. Again, started my business in 2003. This town's been very, very good to me in regards to my success in small business. We're very proud of what we've built up as a company and who we employ. We've been very lucky to give back at a very high level. We were actually just looking back. During the 17 years we've been in business, although a large part of it was during the downturn from 05 to 12, after that we've been able to give back over $100,000 to community organizations. And for a small business, that's a big number. For most businesses, maybe it's not a big number. For us, it was very, very impactful for us to see that, and very humbling. Involved in town with Milford Rotary Club. I'm a Freemason as well, so I'm involved in area organizations, and it's just been a very good town for me to come up in. So
now,
very proud.
When we look at Milford,
yes,
if you're stepping into the Selectman's role, I mean, there you have, I've been on the FinCom, the most influential, powerless people in town government.
Very, very influential.
But we get 1 vote.
You do.
All 15 of us get to share one vote. The only way we get to vote more is we're town meeting members.
Exactly, yeah.
But the selectmen really do set the tone for the town.
Yes.
The school committee has a bigger budget, being 62% of our budget. but when you look at policies and the character of the town, it's the selectmen.
Sure.
How do you think you would help the image, the overall view of Milford?
Great question. Actually, what drove me to actually get involved at a little bit deeper level started several years ago from an image standpoint. I realized that we had a perception problem. People didn't realize how great and strong and good this community was when they were moving into town. Being in real estate, I'm exposed to a lot of consumers, and we would sit down with every buyer, whether I was working with them or someone else in my office, and we'd have a first-time home buyer, a second-time home buyer meeting, and I'd say, where do you want to live? And they'd say, every other town around Milford. They would name them, Bellingham, this, boom, beep, boop, boop. And I'd say, okay, what about Milford? And they'd say, oh, no. And I'd say, why? And they couldn't give me a reason. It always came back to their perception, their misperception of our town. Whether it's driving through downtown and it doesn't seem maintained, there was always something. It came around to they didn't want the city life, and they felt that this was a city. And we're certainly a big town and certainly have a diverse culture, but we're certainly not what I feel is a city. And so I would sit there with these people and educate them on our school system, and I would educate them on the strength of our town through great decisions and plans put on by our finance committee and previous board of selectmen. And I would talk about all the powerful things of our community. And I got to educate a lot of people, and some people would say, okay, well, you know what, I will consider Milford, and some people would say no. And so I decided many, many years ago, almost 10 years ago, to get involved in town meeting and just to see if I could impart any change. And certainly I feel good being a town meeting member, but realize that there's a better bully pulpit for trying to change the direction of a community. And again, notice my generation starting to leave. Notice my generation giving up and saying, oh, we're going to go over here, we're going to go over there. And that started to bother me and hurt me, and I said, I'm not going anywhere. So I think what I was focused on was trying to, or at least the challenges I feel that are in front of us, is trying to help change that perception, trying to ensure that people understand the benefits of this community and the strength of this community. And I think we can do that with certain changes and aspects that we need to face and focus on, but it's certainly not the snap of a finger. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take energy. Bottom line, my number one goal will always be to protect the property values in this town. For a person who's in real estate, your success is based on a town being able to sell property and people wanting to live there and be a part of that community. And when you see that changing, you start to say, hey, wait a second, why is this happening? So my goal will be to protect the property values of residential and commercial taxpayers in this community.
Now, what would you think are the three biggest challenges Milford's going to face?
Great question.
Or is facing.
I will go back to the fact that we need to ensure that we do everything to protect property values. That's a challenge that's affected by other things, but I think it is a challenge that we have to ensure that we're not, and I don't want to name communities, but communities that have gone through losing a downtown or losing a school system and have faced the consequences of not paying close enough attention. And there's plenty in Worcester County that we can look at. I think the downtown revitalization is going to be a big challenge that we're starting to work on. I think the committee we have in place has been great. I think they have a focus. I think what we need to do with downtown revitalization is a lot bigger. I think we need a bigger focus. I think we need to turn that downtown revitalization into more of economic development, which is kind of what they're doing right now in a certain way. But I want to see a longer-term plan, which they have plans. But I want to look at this and say, how do we truly change the landscape? And we have to look at infrastructure. We have to look at the age of our housing stock. We have to look at so much because, again, that corridor that people drive through is where people base a lot of their perception. And if you continue to allow it to just be and not enforce even some of the zoning laws we have in place and on the books, and not try to make changes through zoning changes that would obviously have to go in front of town meeting and have some things happen, you can fast lose a downtown. And we're lucky right now, our vacancy rates are very low. And most of the communities we've studied, you know, Hudson, Marlborough, Franklin, they had, when they went through revitalization, they had vacancies. And certain towns had different aspects, certain towns had other things going on, a T station, and that obviously impacted it. But I think we're actually on the precipice of having some great things happen. And so I believe if we really increase the focus increase the direction that they're heading, I think we can start to impact change that will bring investors into town to invest money, right? You want somebody to come in and say, I'm going to buy this block and renovate or rebuild this and attract high-quality tenants. But what goes first? It's the chicken or the egg. Do we address the finger streets of the housing stock and get people to then buy commercial, or do we need to invest in commercial and then that'll affect the finger streets? What about parking? What do we do with parking since we have such a parking issue? What about our infrastructure and our traffic problems on our roads? It's not just let's paint buildings and let's put facades on. It's how do we look at this in a total block and try to address
Well,
it.
how do you feel about the town spending money to buy houses to make parking lot?
I was for it. I felt that, and I've seen many other towns do this successfully, when you have buildings that were abandoned and certainly not being cared for and had no plans of renovation and any attempt to attract commercialization and increase revenue into the town. I think that that's something that's a very, you're walking a fine line here. But in the instance that we addressed the ones we had, I think those were very, very much far gone. Two of the buildings were certainly falling down. They were an eyesore. They didn't bring anything. Now, yes, we lost some tax base there. We lost people paying property taxes. Wasn't tremendous. Certainly, you don't want to lose any of that. But I think for what could be in the sense of additional parking, so that people want to be downtown, long term, I think we need to look at increased municipal parking, whether it's through additional lots or through structures, which can get very expensive, and now you have to look at maintenance. So again, there's all these things that are happening, but we have to focus on this because we lose our downtown, we lose a lot of things.
But now, when I think of what downtown needs,
Sure.
one obviously is parking.
Yes.
Because for the longest time, when I grew up and Milford had 10 cars in the whole town, we never had that problem.
Right.
You'd walk down to Grant's, on the way home
Yeah.
from school, get a bag of popcorn, and life was good.
Yes.
So we're starting to deal with parking. But the other thing that seems more fundamental is population.
Sure.
When you say there's no vacancies, when I drive through Milford, if I look up, I see second floors, third floors. Are those all full?
A large portion of them are residential rentals. There are some offices on second floors. I wouldn't know exactly what units may be vacant in the sense of the residential piece, but I know some of the landlords, and I know they're typically pretty full. The problem we get into with population, for me, is probably the second biggest challenge we have is facing the overcrowding issue. This is an issue that becomes more than just overcrowding and talking about illegal housing. We're talking about a humanitarian issue as well. I don't blame tenants for overcrowding. I don't blame people wanting to come to town and be connected to families that have moved here. I've heard you say, and actually I believe you are 100% right, this has been an immigrant community for a long time.
Still is.
Still is. And people need affordable housing and places to live. But what happens is people come over with language barriers, not the correct means to be able to access some of the things they're looking for. And landlords take advantage of that. Property owners take it. Not everybody, because obviously we have a great number of good landlords following the rules. But there are some, and I can tell you there's hundreds of units through just my reports back from the inspections we have with the assessors going building to building, that certainly don't meet certain standards. And we have humanitarian issues from health and safety. These are dangerous situations that some people are in. There's been allegations and reports of abuse. And so these people are forced to live in these situations because they want to be here, and they know the school system will support, and they know we have a hospital, and they know all these things are in place and their benefits, but then they get taken advantage of. So for me, we need to start looking at how do we ensure that these people are in safe, legal units, and that these landlords are penalized if they're supporting this kind of behavior. There was a story that I dealt with a few months back where a tenant lost a key to their unit. And that tenant said to the landlord, I need a key. And the landlord said, no problem, it's $600. That person went to the courts and looking for help. Really wasn't an issue the courts could help with. They went to the police department. Police department said, it's really not a criminal issue. We can't really assist you, but you should go to town hall. Finally got to town hall and had enough people step up and say, come with me. And literally, I won't say who did it, but left and went to that property, called the property owner to find that this person was living in a basement unit, no bathroom, no kitchen, using the outside as a facility. And for me, that's such a big issue that we're kind of sometimes turning a blind eye to. And we need to look at this because overcrowding obviously is a health issue, obviously is a legal issue in the sense of housing, but we're talking about huge impact on police, on fire, on traffic, on our hospital, and on our school system. So for me, I want people to have a home. It's what I do for a living. I want people to be in a home, a safe home, and a legal home, and a healthy home. So that's one area we really need to focus on through task force, increased focus of task force, additional funding if need be. I mean, we're asking people who work a 40-hour week to then say, oh, by the way, we need you to spend at least 10 or 15 hours on this. And we may need to look at additional positions. Worcester does a great job, even though it's a city. There's other towns, too. They have what's called a nuisance officer. It's also been called a compliance officer, community liaison. They're responsible for going out and checking and really reporting on all different areas, from blight to overcrowding to unkept properties to the issues with the parks and issues with the schools, and reporting back to who needs to be hearing from. And maybe we need that. Maybe we need to start looking at a position like that. We need to put some focus on this because, again, when housing starts to become such an issue that it's impacting all these other areas, and you can't control it because we don't have the data. The data isn't there of our housing stock and who's in the population. The schools didn't realize there was going to be 150 people coming in on top of what they had this year.
Not in a year.
Not in a year. So this is a huge issue that we need to control because, again, these are one of those things that can tear down a community and hurt people's livelihoods, hurt a community, hurt a culture. And so that's something we have to focus on.
Well, I think some of it, too, is that a lot of people don't really understand that it's not an elitist point of view.
No.
It's not an economic point of view, because the town doesn't get anything out of it.
Nothing.
You know, when you think about when, I can relate to the Portuguese coming over, right?
Yes.
I mean, you had families of 10, 11
Yeah.
jamming into a house
Yep.
because that's what they could afford.
Absolutely.
And then little by little, as the children got a little older, they got a house.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the kids went there. Another one got a house, and it just spread out.
Sure.
And they all became part of the Milford community.
Right.
But initially, I mean, when my grandfather came over to Milford in '39, I have no doubt he had $32.80 in his pocket. But you talk to the people that knew him or people who their parents knew him, he lived like a slave. He wouldn't spend a penny to save his life because his whole goal was to save as much money as he could and send it back to my grandmother so that she could feed 3 daughters.
Wow.
And you
Yeah.
sit there and say, okay, thank God I've never had the situation where I didn't have enough money to feed my kids.
Right. It's a tough choice to make, right?
But I don't know how I would react.
I'm not sure either. It's a
I
very
hope
difficult.
none of us ever see it.
I agree.
But, when you see the people coming in and they're crammed, and, the whole thing, the big blow up about an immigrant family that was cutting up meat in their house,
Oh,
I laughed.
Yeah.
Because the person who was telling me the story on how terrible it was, I looked and said, you better be careful about your grandmother. It was what? I said, she was one of the women I hated. Her, my mother, and 4 other ladies would make linguiça once a year in my house. And back then it was those electric knives.
Yeah.
We didn't have cable TV. So the TV went nuts because all you could see is the lines going across. And sure enough,
Yeah.
all the Portuguese grandmothers, well, back then they were moms,
Yep.
would make the super secret recipe.
Yep.
And my father made a little smokehouse so they could smoke the linguiça and take it home.
Yep.
And you sit there and say, if they're, you look today, the Guatemalans, the Ecuadorians, who are
Yeah.
the new Brazilians, who are the new Portuguese, who are the new Irish, who are the new...
Italians.
Dang these people for wanting to be like us.
Right. I mean, and that's really what it is. We're in no way trying to stop people from having homes and having suitable homes. And families aren't as big as they were in the sense of a single unit. There's a lot of relations, though. There's a lot of people who have a lot of big relations. My grandparents were one of 9 and one of 11. So, in today's standards, I don't know if the 3-bedroom would work for them. But it's the situations where people are being taken advantage of.
Well, see, and that's the point. When you start hearing about these boarding houses, I'm not going to hold it against anybody who comes to this country, puts their head down, works hard to better their family's living.
Correct.
I mean, that's why my grandfather
That's why I'm
came
here.
here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's why I'm here.
But I'm not overly happy with the landlords who have, 200 amps of electric coming into a house and now they're splitting it out 5 ways.
Correct.
Because you're just waiting for a fire to happen.
So I get a call every once in a while from a first responder or someone who's doing some kind of an inspection. And it happened last week on a property in Milford. Hey, can you look this up for me? I said, yeah, sure. Pull it up, and certainly won't say the address, but is this, how many units? I said, it's a 2-family. He's like, there's 5 units here. He's like, they're locked off. They're not just like shared doors. They're like separate. I said, all right, well, then make sure you report it, and let's get that in there. The 5th unit was downstairs in the basement, very similar. No kitchen, no bathroom. So these are the situations that I talk about. I think sometimes when people begin to talk about this, they feel like it's an attack on an economic status of a different culture. It has nothing to do with that.
I talked once, they told me I was anti-immigrant.
Exactly.
I started laughing. I said, Alberto Bruns Correa, nice to meet you. You want to really tell me that
You're
I'm against my
anti-immigrant,
family?
right. Yes. So for me, it's just helping to ensure that the community is in a good place, that we help the community not be so taxed in certain areas, and to ensure that families are in safe living conditions, because that's really the concern.
But what can selectmen do? You can't deport people
No.
who are bad people to Rhode Island.
No. You have to work with landlords. You have to work with these people to say, you need to do this correctly. You need to do this the right way. You need to follow the guidelines. The Board of Health program that was put in place several years back was a great program. But even I want to be able to try to work with other elected officials like the Board of Health to say, how do we change this? How do we make this better? How do we continue the inspections, not just that one time and then they pay a fee because they fill out a form? I think we got to go a little deeper here. We got to make sure that people are doing what they need. If you want to be a property owner and you want to be a landlord, there's a lot of rules and regulations in the state of Massachusetts. My wife has been doing it for 25 years. I can tell you that if you adhere to those rules and regulations, you're going to ensure that people are in good living conditions. And all you're doing is violating mass law and certainly town bylaws and ordinances. And they should be held accountable to that.
And you're violating Milford law.
Milford.
I mean, at the end of the day, I stepped up and got yelled at because I said, I don't need people from Beacon Hill or Capitol Hill coming in telling me how to take care of our kids and how to run Milford.
Correct.
I got 200 people call town meeting who've done a phenomenal job.
Amazing job.
And they don't need, I hate to call them foreigners, but outsiders, because they seem to make the right decisions for what's good for our kids and our community.
This town, certainly since I've been involved, has done an amazing job with some very tough decisions, close votes. Certainly could have gone either way, but they always tend to do and have always seemed to do what's right for Milford. And you certainly have different people who have different ideas and different thoughts, but it's not like state government or politics where you have these two sides. It's mostly common sense voters. They may be over here on this issue, but over here on another. And I think that's what makes our town meeting so great.
Unless it's to do with chickens.
Unless it's to do with chickens. That was a tough one.
We go through $100 million worth of decisions in 30 minutes.
Yep, chickens.
And then the chickens take up the whole town meeting.
It was a killer. It was a killer.
Now, loaded question.
Sure.
2.5 override, debt exclusion, words I consider profane.
Yes, I agree.
How do you feel about taxing to the levy limit?
Taxing to the levy limit is something that I hope I never have to see or do. I think Milford, I'm very proud that people on the Finance Committee, so I'm definitely throwing you a shout out, have done such an amazing job. That's one of my big things when I'm fighting the perception. Let me tell you about the fiscal strength of our town. Let me explain to you what that means in regards to taxation. Let me explain to you what that means when you go look at all these other towns. Let me show you the history of 2.5 overrides and what has happened. So for me, not having the capacity we have, giving back money on the tax rate, those things are hugely important to me, and I think that that's something that I want to see continue. I hope I never have to be at a point where we have to look at taxing to the levy limit, and if we are, I hope we're never talking about 2.5 overrides or debt exclusions. And I know that there are certainly catastrophes that can happen, and buildings could burn. I mean, there could be so many things that come up, but man, it would have to be something really, really aggressive for us to take a look at that and even consider. I would
We
never
got a
want
few pennies, a few shekels put away.
We talked previously, stabilization, what we have in that account, our free cash, how the money's managed, the planning, which to me is one of the best things that the Finance Committee does, and I don't think enough boards do this, and I'd like to see more boards, and I would certainly be a proponent of this, more long-term planning. The Finance Committee looks out 5, 10 years, and a lot of other committees are looking out, okay, what are we doing, tomorrow? And for me, if you fail to plan, plan to fail. I think that's very important. It's what has made this town successful financially. So I'd like to see more of that across the board.
If we look at capital projects,
Sure.
are there any that hit home that you'd like to see us prioritize?
Outside of the water company?
We're going to talk about the water company now.
That's one we got going on. So I know that there's a few being talked about. We have the I believe it's $2 million looking at the potential new highway building. We have the pool. Is that did I miss that? I was told about the highway department.
I think about being young, thin, and have hair. Both probably have the same odds on making it.
Well, I know that was being tossed around. We have the pool project. We have a turf field project. I'd like to see us start to look at parking. I think that's going to be very important. I know there's facilities, from a school standpoint that need to be looked at, long term. And but I would on the surface, just talking about the Pheno project or the Pheno pool project, and I know that that's where you had your first kiss, so I know it's very sentimental.
God.
I know it's very. I've heard that, and at maybe town meeting. For me, that on the surface, that's an awesome thing. I would like to see what else we can do with the facility at the same time, outside of just the pool. I think if we're going to have a capital project or a project at Pheno, I'd like to see what's long-term, right? What else are we focused on? That's the gem of Milford. For me, that's one of the greatest facilities. It can be lit up. It's not going to affect residents at night. It has so much potential to be even greater than what it is. So I'd like to understand how we can really look at that as even a bigger project.
I'd love to see more down there, but I keep being told it's part of the flood plan.
It is.
The plain.
Yes.
So you're limited, because when we talked about...
Because the bowl, I believe, is in the floodplain.
It's in the floodplain. It's designed to be flooded and protect every other area.
100-year floodplain, I believe,
So
right? Yeah.
you can't do like it's like same thing as the dump.
Yes.
For I can't call it anymore, the Plains Park. For us old people, it's still the dump.
The dump, yeah.
You can't turf it because it outgasses and it settles.
Sure.
But, you bring up the turf field.
Yes.
That started when the Parks Department wanted us to consider building a turf field next to the tradesman up on 140.
Oh, yeah, yes, yep.
And that was the years when we had to put in $3 extra million into the youth center.
Yes.
And we went to the Parks Department and said, look, with all due respect, got $3 million we got to get for the youths. There's no money.
There's nothing else, right?
Left for millions of dollars to do a turf field.
Right.
And plus it's half in Hopedale, which I never understood why we'd put money into building Hopedale. But to their credit, we said, look, we can't promise anything because it's town meeting.
Right.
But if we keep having the surpluses we're having, why don't you live with 5 years or 6 years of letting us tuck away money until we have 1.2 million?
Proper planning.
Then, exactly, go ahead and build turf a field somewhere.
Yes.
Well, 2 years ago, we hit 1.2 million. So the money now is there for the Parks Department to come up with a plan And whether they're going to turf Pheno Field, not the annex, obviously,
Yep,
but
yep.
Pheno Field itself, Town Park, wherever, the money now is sitting there. So we don't have to go to town meeting hat in hand
And say,
and say, I need money to do this. Guys, we've been saving money for 6 years. We're there.
another example of proper planning, long-term planning to ensure it's funded.
Now,
and
the
you're
pool is going to be an emotional issue.
not- No, it is.
It's always been an emotional issue because 10 years ago, Mark Shane and I started, maybe it was 15, arguing. Logically, he was right. We're better off closing the Pheno Field pool, taking over Casey,
Yeah.
and be done.
Right,
But Pheno Field pool is Milford.
right.
And it's got trees. We could go, I mean, I love the idea of taking my grandson down there, set up a picnic, and just spend hours.
Well, for me, it makes a lot of sense too, especially now that the walking trail's there. You know, you can get there from many different areas. You can bike down to the field. Casey Pool's limited in regards to what you can do there. Obviously, there's not a lot of room.
It doesn't have a tree.
It's got a lot of trees on the perimeter, way on the perimeter. But I agree. I mean, I have been a part of the Rotary Club in Milford for 15, 16 years now, and for a long time, up until just a few years, maybe 2 years ago, we funded a summer swim program where people could come and learn how to swim and get your swim lessons, and we did it and successfully way before I was involved. So for me, I agree. I think Pheno is Milford. It represents what Milford is, and it's a location that needs attention and needs some focus.
I mean, think about Stacy.
Yeah.
Logically, we would have been better off tearing it down and building an ugly glass and steel building.
Yeah.
But that's Milford granite.
Yeah.
You know, I always laughed and I said, we squeeze everywhere. So every once in a while, when you're talking about the character of Milford, you can go a little bit on emotion.
Absolutely. Well, that's what it is. You look at the Consigli building that they moved, and you look at how beautiful that building is now, what a job they did. And knowing that we have a developer in town coming in to do the same thing with Middle School East and what that's going to look like. I've seen the renderings, I've seen the plans. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And you take that end and you take where the rail trail just purchased and what they're going to do to that end of that little corridor. That's some excitement for our downtown corridor to
So
start coming alive.
how do you feel about Middle East being developed?
How do I feel about it? I was all for it. I was all for getting that building on the tax roll. I was all for selling it. I know, again, I think people saw the sale price, and you hear people out there rumblings, I can't believe we sold it for that little money. If people had any idea what is the
As opposed to
expense,
what?
tear it down, pay for it to be torn down, that what is happening in that school and what's going to happen, the expense, we probably should have paid him to take it, in my opinion.
I would have been happy if that was the alternative to pay Kevin.
Yes.
Because it put it back on the tax roll.
It's already on. They're paying taxes. At the day he bought it, that was it. So we're already earning income from that. It's going to be beautiful. I already have 20 people with their hands up, snowbirds who say, I don't want to own my house anymore, but I want to be in Milford. I want to come back. I want to be with my family. I want to see my family. I'd like to be in a facility like this. That's what we need. It's restricted in age in regards to who can be there. It's not adding any taxation into our school system. We're getting tremendous tax income, even more once it's done. That is a win for the town of Milford.
Well, I mean, any time you can build 1 or 2 bedroom
Yeah, studio.
studio, it's a win for Milford.
Absolutely.
I mean, Paul Abedanza did a report once for us, and he showed us how for every dollar in real estate tax, it costs the town $1.80.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, you just figure each kid that you have in the house
Yep.
is $14,000, $12,000 to $14,000.
Yep.
The average house pays $5,500. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Old Portuguese math is easy to
It's
figure out that it's costing you a lot more.
Yeah.
And if you got 2 or 3 kids,
Yep.
but those wonderful 1 and 2 bedrooms,
Yeah.
it's either for very young or very old.
And we talked about this at our downtown revitalization meeting. We have, the town funded a small study to be done to study some of these other towns. And they're talking about housing and how do we get more housing. Housing is already kind of there with these rental units, these pre-existing units. I said, if anything was going to happen, it can't be anything more than studio one-bedroom apartments or condominiums or whatever you want to call it. Because A, that's who wants to live downtown. Either people who, especially if we have a thriving work, live, play downtown. People who are going to live in that Middle East building are going to be people who are like that, snowbirds who want to come and go. They're out of here in the winter. Or young people starting out who want to be close to everything, want to be close to the rail trail and all these other places that will hopefully be opening up over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's the only housing that I could ever foresee being downtown outside of what's there now. It would be units that would not allow taxation into the school system. I think the schools have to be able to catch up and breathe, and we can't introduce 200 more units of 3 and 4 bedrooms. It's unhealthy for our community.
But now, do you think people understand the positive impact that the commercial units have on their taxes?
I don't think people appreciate enough the dual tax rate. And my father is going to yell at me for this because he's a commercial property owner. As a residential and commercial property owner like him, and a member of the Board of Assessors, I look at things very differently, and it's really what's best for this town. Paying the dual tax rate as a commercial property owner, yes, it's not the most wonderful thing in the world.
It's like saying Hiroshima was a minor inconvenience to the afternoon tea.
That's a good analogy. The residents enjoy the benefit of this, and it's an amazing thing. And when I do hear people say, "Oh, my taxes are high," and I do tell people, our taxes went up. They typically do every year. The jump up, even over the last year or two, is because our property values have risen. Your asset, your biggest asset, or most likely that person's biggest asset, is worth a lot more than it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And that's just with the trending market since 2012. We're probably starting to flatten out, but things are really, really good. And if you look at any area town, and going back to how I sell this town, your taxes and the services you receive, because compared to any other towns, the services that we receive and have are far beyond any area town. I would put us up against anyone who borders us, plus outside of that
A few more.
Yep. So for me, it's something I think that the residents probably need to just really understand a little bit more, because you hear some people don't even know what that means. They don't even know what the rate shift is, and what does that even mean? And so, and again, if you're not paying attention, when I was a young man, I don't know. But now I see such value in it, not just because I'm a residential property owner, but being in the real estate business, dealing with consumers every day, and seeing every other town that we sell. We're very, very lucky.
Well, again, you look at that same report, and it said that the average commercial dollar costs us 18 cents.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very simple. 62% of our budget's school.
Right.
Lioce Properties doesn't have children.
It doesn't. You could say that it has a couple, but it doesn't. It has no children in the school system.
So right away you're doing that.
Right.
The commercial people typically pay their own trash removal, pay a lot of the expenses that come in. And industrial is like 16 cents.
Right.
So, when we voted as a town meeting to subsidize a little tiny bit of money to help the Main Street businesses spruce it up.
Correct.
I sat there and said, compared to what we're taking,
Yeah, it was a small gesture, and an appreciated gesture. I think anyone who's taken advantage of that program is very lucky, and I think they're very much appreciative of what that is. I worked with Senator Fettman's office to obtain the first 150 and then the second 70, and I'm going to fight for even more, no matter what position I'm in. And same as Brian Murray's office. Senator Fettman's office has been very, very good. And Brian's has been excellent as well. And we are going to fight to continue to get that state funding for our downtown programs.
talk to me about the water company.
Talk to you about the water company. I was in full support of purchasing the water company.
Why?
I'm going to go back to my initial reaction and it all comes back to me being in the real estate business. I see other towns and there's not many, that own their own water company. I see the issues that some of these towns have. We've been fairly lucky with a private water company. But I believe that a municipality should own its own water. I believe we should deal with our own sewer, just like we do. For me, I know that, and I've understood this, and I made sure that I understood this as this started happening. Anything that happens, let me back up. Some people would say, we don't know what's under the road. And I'd say, you're right, we don't know what's under the road. We have no idea. But when time comes to figure it out, and when it's the time to do the maintenance, we're paying for it as a ratepayer. So not as a taxpayer, but as a ratepayer, you're paying for whatever repairs are done. And you're paying for the profit of the company doing the repairs. So for me, knowing that the town could own the water company, and we're only paying for the repairs at cost, not also the profit of another company or the profit that the stockholders need to see, we're going to save money, and we're going to control the process, and we're going to control the quality of our water. And as a selectman, if you get a call from someone to say, hey, my water's brown right now, well, you can certainly make a call and ask for that private company to address it, and they would do whatever they felt was the right thing to do. When it's the town, I would hope that they would certainly look at that a little differently and handle that call a little bit more.
You mean the people who work for you?
Correct. Correct.
I'm sorry. When my boss calls me,
You react differently.
you react a little
react a little
differently
differently.
than somebody that really has no sway or...
Exactly. So for me, that's important. Understanding that, this isn't going to be an enterprise fund similar to that of the sewer, where taxes aren't going to go up because of this, and this is already going to be funded, and only the people who are ratepayers are going to pay any increases for any lack of maintenance that needs to be addressed, which we would pay for.
I still
Anyway.
struggle with the idea that I get to hire another company. It's like Josh Lioce hires Rudy Lioce to do the work and somebody else pays. Yeah, I'm going to believe that.
And both companies build in profit.
Right.
Right.
And I'm going to believe that in your heart you'll do the right thing, but are you going to be as hard on Brother Rudy as you would on, Okefenokee Construction Company?
Probably not. Probably not.
It's just human nature.
It is. It is.
And now, I look, and you're absolutely right that no matter what happens, because people said, oh, you're buying these 100-year-old pipes. Yes, we are. We own them now.
Correct. We're going to pay for that 100-year-old pipe repair.
We don't technically own it, but if it goes bad, the water company will put out the money, add their 10%.
Right.
And the other thing I don't understand is the whole cost structure where they get paid a profit on what they spend. So why would they try and squeeze money and not spend as much
When they get the profit.
when they get, a 10% return on every dollar they spend or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's unfortunately set up for failure in the long run in the sense of what we're paying as the ratepayer.
Yes.
I think it's important that it goes through. Obviously, if the monies are right, if we don't buy the water company, I believe we're still going to be. They have the right to go back and collect even all the legal fees because of this dispute. So this is something that I feel needs to happen.
But when you look, what do you have? Maybe 3 other towns that don't
I think there's
own?
like 6 total.
Okay, so half a
Sutton's
dozen.
one of them. Northbridge is another
Now,
one.
There's companies going out scooping up these private companies.
Oh yeah. So if I'm sure you probably already know, but if this doesn't happen, if they don't sell, if we aren't able to buy them, whatever happens, they are going to sell.
Yes.
And they are going to sell to another company, another entity that will be then paying probably even more profit and more overhead.
Well, let's say we said 60 million and new company comes in, offers them 80 or 90.
Yes,
Okay, first thing they're going to do is take out a mortgage
of course.
on 90 million and pay the mortgage rate and then add.
Why
There's
why
no
wouldn't they?
incentive for
Yeah,
them to only pay 70 million.
right, and use their own money when they can.
They can pay 90 and then they get, 8% or 10% profit on the 90 they're paying.
Yeah, no, this is something that has to happen, and it will be the best thing for the town and the community. I feel strongly about
You know,
that.
when you look at it, the sewer department,
Right.
I mean, we keep yelling at John Mainini and his crew.
Right.
And you say, why are you yelling at him? He hasn't raised the rates in 9 years.
And people are mad. People get frustrated over that. I think it's one of the greatest things that we can boast about.
As
They've done
long
such a
as
good
we
job.
don't need, I haven't heard one person say we're shortchanging the sewer system, that we're setting up the town to fail.
Right.
But we keep saying, John, are you okay? And him and the people on the sewer commissioners come back saying, yeah, we're fine.
We're good.
We're building the enterprise fund. We just did a $5 million building. And it was great when we went to town meeting, and town meeting said, how much money do you want from us? None.
None.
Rudy, wait a minute, be serious. Tom,
None.
you don't need any money from us? You're going to do the $5 million on you? Yep. Well, how much you going to raise our rates? Nothing yet. Okay.
Yep.
So if we use that same Milford model,
Correct.
why do I
Exactly.
believe it would work any worse?
Correct. Exactly. And I'm sure in the beginning we're going to have to address some repairs that maybe haven't been done, but they were going to have to be done at some point. Outside of that, I certainly foresee this being a well-run, very similar to the sewer department, and very successful for the community.
Let's see, what was the last minor rate increase? 50%?
Minor rate increase. It was.
The minor rate increase
Yes.
before that was 30, and I'm sitting there saying, 2% inflation.
Not quite in line.
Not quite 30%
Not
over
quite
so many
30%.
years.
Correct.
And they're going back for 30, if it
Correct.
was a one-time, I wouldn't like it, but I could live with it,
Sure.
Yep.
The
bus, we have a bus that runs
Yes.
in Milford.
Yes.
What do you think?
I'm happy we have the bus. I'm very excited that I know Jen Walsh and her program is using it now. That was very exciting. I want to see things like that happening. Want to see people who need it the most using it, and they're training their students and their kids to understand how to travel to and from work and getting that experience. So I think that's amazing. Ridership is up every year. I think for what we pay for it, because I know we get subsidies back from the state, I think it's very inexpensive to run. I'd like to see it expanded eventually. I see facilities like community impact that Amy Leone runs, and people who have to go to the pantry, people who have to go to Salvation Army, people who need it ride it, and people who just want to get around town ride it. So we're exposed to a lot of different people utilizing it, and I think it's a great program.
Yeah, I think the biggest question, it's still an open question in my mind, is are we better off having the bus, or are we better off expanding like the programs down the senior center where you have the little mini buses?
Sure.
Because I was always worried. I mean, luckily we were here, so my mom never needed it, but she could never use the Milford transit bus because she'd have to walk 2 miles
Too far, yeah.
to get it. And I know they're trying really hard.
Yep.
But when it comes to expansion, I'm not sure which. Should we give Sue Clark, because if I say Trotter, she gets mad at me. Should we give Sue Clark, because she's running such an incredible operation,
Amazing.
another bus?
Again, I think you have to look at need. I think you have to look at need. Where is the biggest need? Where is the need we need to fill? And if that's at the senior center, then we need to look at that as an opportunity and an option. If it's ridership, from whether kids taking it or getting around town, shopping, some of the other services and the businesses that are utilizing it as well, then I say we need to look at both options to see what's the best one and where do we spend our money.
Yeah, I remember the night we were going to vote, Jen Walsh came in, and all of a sudden her cohort Alexis and all the special needs kids came.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly compelling argument to see somebody who says, help me be independent.
Right.
I can now go to a job. This is a Milford kid.
Yeah.
How can you not want to help him?
10 years ago, 15 years ago, Jen Walsh, Special Olympics, now the Aaron Zenas Foundation, those things weren't even on my radar. as I got more involved, so maybe even 15 years ago, seeing the impact that this town has in that area, in that realm, truly changes your outlook, truly changes how you feel about these kids. And when I grew up, it was nothing but segregation.
Right.
You know, yeah. And I see how my children interact with kids who have special needs or handicaps, and I'm blown away by their lack of fear, their joy in working with these children. And so someone like, you know, Jennifer or Alexis, who are so involved, those people are
Well, you
saintly
go to
me.
the Best Buddies dances.
Right.
It is wonderful.
FOMASA has got to be my favorite event of the year.
Yes.
It's got to be my favorite event of the year. So it's a wonderful night celebrating these student athletes, and the joy and the excitement they have and the love they have for people who are involved in their lives it just blows me away every time.
You know, when you think about it, those kids gave me more as a Special Olympics coach than I will ever be able to give to them.
Oh, I 100%.
You know, I
agree
mean,
with you.
I was blessed over 14 years of coaching typical kids that I had wonderful families, and they really did take care of me and make sure that everything was, you know, on the up and up.
Right.
God help anybody who came to attack. The mother brigade got out there, and it's like you're looking at them like, okay, we'll turn around.
Yeah, we're all set.
But the Special Olympics kids, if they weren't doing what you asked, it was because they didn't understand.
Right, sure.
You know, and the Special Olympics families, they are special.
Yeah.
Because they're so appreciative of everything you do for the kids.
Everything.
And yet, you know, we got 4,500 kids in Milford.
Yeah.
And this group we call special athletes or special needs kids, they're no more special, but no less special than everybody else.
They're very unique. They love at such a level. It's pretty amazing.
But yet we've faced town meeting members who've come up and said, the reason we have so many special needs kids is we set up these programs better than everybody and we attract them.
Well, that's too bad. That's just too bad. It's a bad position to be in. I certainly would disagree with those people aggressively.
You know, I said, you know, if on the way to helping Milford kids, by accident I help some kids from neighboring towns, I think I can live with that.
I think that's okay.
You know?
I think that's okay.
The day comes, and hopefully it's north. If my long bus ride, I get a suntan lotion and a towel, I'm going to get nervous.
Right.
But hopefully I'll go north.
Yes. Yeah.
And if the worst thing I'm accused of is helping too many kids or being too nice to kids,
You'll take it.
that one I can live with.
Yeah. Every
You know?
day. Every day.
Anything you want to say to the Milford residents?
I want to say thank you for the opportunity to run for this seat. Thank you for the opportunity of being on this show to talk about things. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I love this town. It's given quite a bit to me. It's allowed me to have a family in town, stay in town, have a business, be close to my family, be considered a real Milfordian because I live less than a mile from my mother and father. And I want to continue to do great things to
And
move
you
this
did
community.
well because your brother, they sent down a
Well,
sewer
they sent
hole.
down the sewer hole. I got to give them all the credit. I want to continue to do great work. I want to continue to move this town forward. I want Milford to be a community that my kids and your
Well,
grandkids can be proud of.
Let's end up with the question I always end with.
Sure.
Josh, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
You should vote for me because nobody will care more about doing what's right for this community, moving this town forward, and caring deeply as Josh Lioce will. Josh wants to see this town go forward and get out of any kind of buffer zone that we've been in, like that computer that spins, the little clock that spins. We need to take action. Now is the time. I don't want to sit back and watch anything continue to deteriorate. We have some strengths, some strong strengths that we have to go on the back of, such as our financial strength and stability, and we have to build upon them. And I will focus very hard and work very hard to do that for our community and for people who are coming into town and for generations behind me.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
for stepping up.
Thank you very
Because
much.
too many people can pick out areas to complain about.
Yes.
And again, I'll fully admit I have a character flaw that I believe you can complain about anything you're willing to fix. These people who just want to complain, that's just a bad use of good oxygen.
Correct.
So
We see too much of it in today's society.
when I see somebody like you step up and say, I can make it better. And I love the Milford election cycle because they're ladies and gentlemen. You don't hear the negativity that,
Right.
you know, he sucks, but I suck less, so vote for me. You know, and that's
Right.
so pleasant when you're, I mean, I start off the morning, I turn on Fox News. Halfway to work, I turn on CNN.
Get
So I
both
figure
sides.
somewhere in between is probably reality.
Correct.
And then every once in a while, when I'm tired of listening, I go to the BBC.
There you go.
You know, but it's nice that we just spent 57 minutes talking about what you want to do for Milford.
Has it already been 57 minutes?
It's been 57 minutes.
That flew by.
So,
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity. I appreciate it very much. Very much.
and as always, the time is coming. This will be one of a critical election position to help shepherd the town going into the future. As I promised, I'm not going to ask you to vote for any specific candidate, but I'm going to beg you to get to know them. There's plenty of opportunities. If you're one of the 6 that watch this show, if you watch Kevin Rudden's show at the Town Crier, if you go to the Senior Center, they'll have live discussions. But get to know the people and make your mind up as to who you believe will make this into the Milford that you want to see. And then please get out and vote. If you can't make it easily, just call the town hall, call the clerk's office, get on an absentee ballot. And I've been out of the country a number of times. When I've used that, it cost me 50 cents to mail it. But at least I get my vote in. So, as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Thank you for joining us.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just